Hello, my name is Paul Tyler. I run Handling Ideas. And what I want to do right now is explain to you how a handling story session would work. It's pretty much the same if I was doing it online through Zoom or whether or not I was actually in person. And I work with people writing feature films, fiction, documentary, TV series. So the same method that I'm going to explain now applies to all of them. So first of all, let's just change the camera. Okay. So what we have here is a nice empty table. And there you go. There's a person. That's the sort of thing that I think you as writers, creatives, artists, producers, directors are fascinated by. You're fascinated by human beings. Why? Because you like to identify the soft, squidgy stuff that makes us human, the stuff that makes us problematic. Often it's paradoxical questions about us, about issues around us as how we cope as human beings. And that's what you want to stick your finger in. And you do that by basically creating stories. So here's a story. There's some characters. I'll put some more characters in there. There's clearly a world. There's always a dog somewhere, perhaps, and maybe some children. And by creating these complex worlds, and by basically creating quite hierarchies and statuses and conflict between the various different characters, what you're actually doing is you're creating a kind of machine, as it were. And that machine is, in a way, there to help. The story is there to help the members of the audience. There's a member of the audience coming in, okay, right, to try to understand and process this particular theme. Because I don't believe that we tell stories for the sake of telling stories. I think we tell stories in order to explore themes. So that when the same member of the audience, look, they've got their coat on, ready to leave. So maybe that's when they're leaving the cinema. When that member of the audience leaves the cinema, then they have been transformed by your storytelling around a particular theme, so that they themselves will be able to explore that theme in a way that they wouldn't have necessarily done had they not seen your story. So, for example, if they come across that theme in their own lives, okay, it's the same theme, then they can then handle it. So let's put an example on it. Let's imagine the condition you were trying to explore was this notion of, can we truly love someone without being 100% honest? There you go. That's an interesting question, and a question that I don't think you can easily answer. Then you might construct a story with lots of different characters, lots of sort of issues and conflicts that allows this member of the audience to explore this quite deep question. So that when they leave the cinema or when they get up from the sofa, having watched a TV series, they are better equipped at being able to handle that question in their own lives. Now, I'm not so naive as to suggest that they're going to have answers to that question. In fact, I think if you can answer a question, a thematic question from your piece of work, then I think that the question isn't deep enough and isn't problematic enough. But I do think that they may be able to explore it better themselves. Now, one of the interesting things when working with writers is that often writers don't always start with the theme. They often actually start with characters when they're in the shower, walking the dog, or taking the baby out for a walk or something. They'll often come across some interesting characters and some conflicts, and that can often be a starting point. And that's fantastic, and they'll construct a story, and they kind of run into their story, and they create quite complex stories. But what I do as a sort of script doctor is that I then encourage them to sort of go back uphill and try to identify what this particular theme is, because I believe that once you can actually identify the theme of your story, then it makes you much more flexible to come back into your story, to sort of run back downhill into your story, and you can then start reshaping your story to be the most effective story as to explore that theme. Without identifying your theme, you're going to probably be very reluctant to actually start maybe merging characters or changing the structure of your story around. But by going back up and identifying the theme, you're much more able then to come in and to see exactly that this story is there to serve the theme. So I think it's an iterative process. I think that even if you start with the story and then you go back and identify the theme, you can then run back downhill into the story and you can adapt the story. And then you can actually even go back uphill, as it were, to the theme, and you might even tweak the theme. So I don't see the theme as being something that's very easy to define at the beginning, but I see it as something, it's not like a log line or a strap line. It's actually often quite clunky and quite complex to explain. But once you've got a handle on it, it allows you to go into this lovely iterative loop so that you can actually then reshape the story to serve the theme, and you can go back and tighten up the theme and tighten up the story. And that's exactly what I do. So when I sit down with writers, producers, directors, whether or not it's online through Zoom, or whether or not it's actually in the room, I try to identify with them very quickly what the theme would be. So let's say we were doing a 2-hour session together. We might spend 10 minutes just identifying the theme and talking about that. And then I would then spend the rest of the session slowly mapping out all the different characters and all the different interrelationships between the characters, and really trying to understand how this story is constructed by all these interrelationships and interdependencies between all the various different characters, and try to understand how that machine, as it were, is best served to best designed to serve that theme, and ways by which we can actually try and tweak and kind of tune this machine so that it becomes better and better at serving this theme. So that the audience will have a better chance of being able to become transformed by the way by which they think about this theme. So that's how a handling story session works. And if you would like to have a session, then please get in touch. All my details are on the website on handlingideas.com. Thank you very much.